Parts of a right triangle. The sides that touch, well, first off, what does this mean? Little square. What's it mean, Uriah? 90-degree angle. That's what that means, which is what we can only call it a right triangle if we have this little square and we know it's 90 degrees. Next part, we already talked about the sides that touch the right angle, the two shorter sides. Could someone remind me, what are those called? What do we call them? What do we call them? Olivia? Thank you for raising your hand. Yeah, it is the legs of the triangle. It doesn't matter which you label A and which you label B, as long as you have the two sides that touch the right angle. We call those the legs. Again, not my idea. Didn't come up with a word. That's what we call it in math. There's two of them. You have two legs. Think of it like that. And then the side that is a cross from the right angle. Someone raise your hand. Tell me, Elise. Hypotenuse. Weird word. Again, not my idea.
Is there going to be points counted for spelling on the test?
I will not, as long as it looks like hypotenuse. If I say it and it sounds like hypotenuse, that's fine. No, I don't take off points for spelling. So that's super important. You need to look for the hypotenuse, which we always call C. It is the longest side. And it has the square with the biggest area. That's your longest side. Moving on. Okay, this is what we talked about yesterday. That our explanation of Pythagorean theorem is that if I add together the areas of the two little squares on the legs, then I get the area of the big square, called the area on the hypotenuse. So would you please, I know you have your own wording, but I do want you to write down my technical definition right now. I'm going to make you write it over and over. You can rephrase it in your own way as long as you talk about the areas or the squares in some way. If I have a square with a side length of 3, would someone please remind me, how do I go from that side length to the space on the inside, to the area? Brandy, you remember? Right, multiply by itself. So I could do 3 times 3, which is the same thing as, remember how we phrased that yesterday, Francesca? 3 raised to the 2. So yeah, 3 raised to the second power, or 3 squared. So if I do 3 squared, 3 times 3, what do I get, class? 9. So my area of this square is 9. So if I want to label the squares on this diagram, since my side lengths are A, B, and C, then my areas would have to be A squared, B squared, and C squared. That's the same thing you did yesterday. I'm just not going to multiply it because I have letters and I can't. We have our wordy definition of Pythagorean theorem. We have a picture. So what's the equation? Tyler?
B squared plus A squared equals C squared.
Mm-hmm. So you could flip the order. B squared plus A squared equals C squared. It might be easier to remember A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. Two little areas added together gets the big area. A squared plus B squared. Remind me, I have a song for you today.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I'm going to play it.
No.
Because, okay, there's a few things that you remember in math probably forever. This is one of them. For whatever reason, for my students, this sticks in their head. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. We say it all the time. That's Pythagorean theorem. That's the short way to say it. This is what we will write before we solve any problem. We're going to write this down.
Every single problem.
So a reminder to you, because if we want to put numbers into this equation correctly, we have to make sure we put them in the right spot in a right triangle. the hypotenuse. Love that word. Hypotenuse, which we call, is hypotenuse A, B, or C? C! That's important. Hypotenuse, C, is always across from what, guys?
The right angle.
The right angle. The right angle. Or the 90 degrees, or the square, whatever you want to say. I'm going to say it's across from the right angle. We use Pythagorean theorem to find missing sides of right triangles, of triangles with 90 degrees. So write down your steps, and then I will explain it to make a little bit more sense. See across from the right angle, then you are going to substitute, which means replace or plug in the numbers you know into a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and then you're going to solve for the variable you don't know. Pretty simple. First step, it says to find C, or the hypotenuse, across from the right angle. This is what you're going to see me do over and over and over. I'm going to find my right angle and draw an arrow, because the hypotenuse C is directly across from my right angle. And I'm going to label it. I'm going to say, well, this one, or you could circle it. That one is C. That's really important because C is the longest side. It has a special place in this equation. Okay, let's write down, like I said, every single time we solve a problem like this, we're going to write down Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Write it down. You don't know what C is, so you need to leave C like it is. So instead of writing a number there, I'm going to leave it as C squared. Because you don't know what C is. You don't know what that side length is, so it's got to stay a variable. A and B are your legs. It doesn't matter what order you put them in as long as they're not in the C spot. So I'm going to do 5 squared plus 12 squared. Yeah, you got it. That's a 5. Grace, follow directions. Headphones. Okay, this part is not so bad. You can do a lot of these in your head without even putting your calculator. I really believe this, because you're pretty good at these. 5 squared is 5 times 5. What's 5 times 5? 25. Write it down. Right below where it says 5 squared, you're going to put 25. Okay, what's 12 squared? 144, because 12 times 12 is 144. Rewrite your equation. Whoops. Okay, now we have to simplify. I see 2 like terms on the left-hand side. I'm going to add those up. 5 plus 144 is 149, plus 20 more is 169. So rewrite again, 169 equals c squared. This should look familiar. We're trying to get c by itself. Remember, I asked this question the last 2 days. Guys, what is the opposite of squared? Square. I'm going to ask it again because this side of the room was weak. What is the opposite of squared? Square root. So if I want to get rid of this pesky little 2, you need to take the square root. This is not your final answer. If you stop here, first off, that's a really big number, and it should look weird to you. Take the square root. I actually have this one memorized. 13. But you could also put it in your calculator. Second, x squared, 169. Why am I not putting positive or negative? I'm just saying my positive answer for this. Anybody have an idea of why that is? Okay, think about it. Could I say that, like, oh, Tyler is -5 feet tall? The distance of this room is -20 feet. No. That would be pretty weird. We do not have negative distances or lengths And so when we're solving for the side of a triangle, do not put the negative answer. Just put the positive answer. So C is equal to 13 inches. Find C, which is across from the right angle. Jawan, which one's C? X, 15 or 18?
18.
Yeah, because I draw an arrow right across, I can circle that number and put a C. The C is the most important one. Okay, write the equation, Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Every single time before you do this problem, you need to write that out. Now plug in what you know. Okay, we always ask ourselves, do you guys know what C is? Yes, it's 18. You know what it is this time. So in that C spot, you're going to put an 18. Pay attention to whether or not you have it. Okay, the other two sides are A and B. It doesn't matter which one you put for A and which one you put for B because they're legs and they're interchangeable. So I'm going to put x squared plus 15 squared. This one looks a lot like what we did Monday. Again, evaluate your perfect square, evaluate your squares. 15 squared is 15 times 15 is 225. That's probably one you should memorize because you're going to see it a lot. So right below 15 squared, and put 225. What is 18 times 18?
324.
Is that right? Okay. So instead of putting 18 squared, I'm going to put 324. And then bring down the x squared because you can't evaluate that. So x squared plus 225 is equal to 324. This should look the same as you've been doing. So you have to solve that equation. Subtract 225 because you're trying to get x by itself. Is it 99? Okay. Yeah, because it's one short of 100 difference. Class, what's the opposite of squared?
Square root.
So to get rid of that pesky little 2, take the square root of both sides. This one is not a perfect square. It's close. It's going to be really close to 10, but it's not going to be 10. Find the square root of 99, and I only want the positive answer because we're dealing with distances, and you can't have negative distance. And we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So what that says is I'm rounding to 9.9, what was our units? Miles. This is like a really big triangle. There's your final answer.